Hello everyone. This is a 30-minute follow-along session that's designed for people who are looking for something to break up their normal cardio, strength, Pilates or HIIT sessions with something a bit different. This is certainly a collection of non-traditional movements. Some of them will look like yoga poses, but some of them will be what is sometimes described as primal movements or animalistic ground-based movements. It's designed to build strength and mobility, body awareness, and you won't need any equipment with the exception of maybe some yoga blocks or thick books if you're not very flexible into a forward fold position. So I'm going to start with a few descriptions of the positions that I'll be using throughout the session, and then a little warm up, and then we'll get started. So forward fold, half hinge, sweeping hands up, heart center. This position is plank, half press or chaturanga, upward facing dog, downward facing dog. Pounce position, so we'll be using a squat position, or described in yoga as malasana. Now, not everyone can get into a flat-footed squat position. So an alternative is to push your heels up and sit high on your forefoot, or to sit back with your hands behind you with a straight back is a close and a good alternative. Okay, you can start with going to tabletop, doing a few cat camels to stretch your back, twisting to look at your ankles or ankle checks. Roll like a ball, lumbar rocking side to side. Lumbar rocking side to side. Okay. Start in a squat position or malasana. Use whichever position you feel comfortable in, but try to get some mobility through your hips. You can wriggle around side to side and try and open up your hips. You can also start at this stage warming up your wrists, because we'll be doing a lot of weight bearing exercise on your wrists. Roll them round, side to side. Apologies about my son in the background doing his own football training with his headphones on. Roll in the wrists. Okay, into tabletop position. Palms down, fingers facing outwards. Bear some weight through your arms, and then move side to side, warming up the wrists. Side to side, rounding circles. Forward and back, forward and back. If you want a little break from being on your wrists, you can rest into child's pose briefly. Shake the wrists out, give them a rest. Now back to tabletop. Palms facing, palms on the ground, fingers facing back. And as far as is comfortable, you can stretch your wrists. When you're in this position, you can also do some cat camels. Now gently try the backs of your hands on the ground. You won't be able to put a lot of weight through them, just a little bit, and then roll your wrists outwards, up and down, bending your elbows outwards. Up and down, just gently with these ones. Shake, shake, shake. So come to a stand. You can do a forward fold here, but you don't need straight legs. You're going to have bent knees. And we're going to do a sequence of trying to bear a little weight onto the arms. Now practice a position of wrapping your triceps underneath you and elbows facing back. And rise up on your toes and just see whether you can float your feet off the ground for even for a half a second. Weight forward, pushing down on the ground. Like you're about to go into a handstand, but I can't do handstands. Raise up on the toes and then a little hop. See how much you can float. Have a little rest your wrists for a bit. Okay, try again, forward fold, bend in the knees, push the ground away, rise up on the toes, and tiny little hop. Can you float just a little bit? Okay, have a rest. Okay, resting standing position. So, shoulder width apart, or maybe a little wider with your feet. Deep breath. Sweep the hands up, down to heart center, forward fold, half hinge. Malasana, low squat. Hands on the ground, knees bent, rise up on your toes, push the ground away, and step, jump or hop to the back of the mat into plank, then to upward dog, then to downward dog. Up on the toes, pounce position, step, hop or float to the top of the mat, feet beside hands into a low squat. Sweep the hands up, hands to heart center. Now we're going to speed that up a little bit and do it 4 times round. Sweep the hands up, forward fold, half hinge, hand low squat, hands to ground, knees bent, heels raised, hop, step or float to the back of the mat into upward facing dog, then to downward facing dog, pounce position, hop, step or float to the front of the mat, low squat, stand up, hands to heart center, forward fold, half hinge, hands down, knees bent, heels up, float, hop, step to the back of the mat, straight into upward facing dog, downward facing dog, pounce position, float or jump to the top of the mat, low squat, stand, sweep the hands up, hands to heart center, sweep the hands up, heart center, forward fold, half hinge, low squat, jump to the back of the mat again, upward facing dog, downward facing dog, heels up, knees bent, pounce position, jump to the top of the mat, see if you can float, low squat, back to standing, arm sweep up, forward fold, half hinge, low squat, hands down, heels up, float or jump to the back of the mat, upward facing dog, downward facing dog, Pounce position. See if you can float or jump to the top of the mat, straight into squat, back to standing. Sweep hands up, hands heart center, forward fold, half hinge, squat position, up onto shoulders, knees bent, high heels, float to the back of the mat, straight to down, upward facing dog, downward facing dog. Pounce position, float to the top of the mat, straight to low squat, back to standing. Have a rest there. You can shake your wrists out here, shake your shoulders out. Okay, come back to a plank pose and find a downward facing dog. Stretch into an upward facing dog. Now from here, flip your feet over and see how high you can go up onto your toes in this downward facing dog. You're really trying to lift your hips as high as you can and your belly up as high as you can. Back to upward facing dog. I'm going to do that 10 times or thereabouts. High downward dog. Back to upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Really drag your belly button in there on the downward facing dog. Transition back and forth. Just go up on your toes as much as they will tolerate. Almost there, a few more. Lift up, high hips, engage the core. Push the ground away. The last one, hold. Have a rest. Shake out the wrists. It's a long time to be on the wrists. Stretch out the shoulders. Come to a seated position on your mat. Legs out in front. And find a low boat pose. And hold. Engage your core. And if you can, chest forward. Lift up to high boat pose and hold. Low boat pose and high boat pose and back and forth, back and forth. You'll be doing about 20. If you need to rest, have a rest. This is pretty hard. Good. Hold at the bottom for 10. And have a rest. Have a good stretch out. Get ready for the next bit. Okay, come to a low squat or malasana. And this is where we're going to be doing some primal ground-based movements. Have a wriggle around to get used to shifting your weight from left to right. Plant your hands out in front of you to the right with your right knee between your elbows. Lift your hips and push the ground away and try to float sideways across the mat and land. Then we'll do it to the left. Plant hands to the left knee between elbows and float. See how smoothly you can float left to right. And again, hands planted, high hips, shift across. Again, to the left this time, float and shift across. That's 2 now. Let's see if we can get to about 10. Back and forth. And see how much you can make this movement feel like a floating action. Float across. Nice gentle landing with the feet. Back and forth. Try not to hunch your shoulders up over your ears. Very hard on the wrists this. Have a give it, you can shake out, have a little rest now. So the next sequence is approximately the same, but now you'll be bending your elbows and trying to bring your chest as low to the ground as you can. Arms out in front, to the left, bend your elbows, chest down, and float across. Now back to the right, arms out, lower chest, float across. And back and forth. Elbows bent, chest down, float across. Have a little rest in between if you need it. Good, keep going. Have a little rest. Shake out your wrists. Now the next movement will be going forward and back instead of left and right. So come to your low squat, heels up. Now with a forward and back with a twist in it. So right foot out, hop, float with your heels at one end of the mat. Hands sideways, hop and float with a turn, heels facing the other way down the mat. Back and forth. Forward and back with a turn. Good, 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 good. Back and forth. See how much you can float. Okay, rest there. Have a stretch out. Try to stretch out with a child's pose, side to side. Shake your wrists out if you need. So we're going to do a leg exercise now, like a dynamic squat position. So go into a lowish squat and push up with a turn, turning on your left foot. So just pivoting, explode up, pivot on the left foot, back down. Explode up, pivot on the left, squat down. Now on your right leg, pivot on the right leg, squat, explode up, turn on your right leg. And turn and squat. Explode up, turn, squat. Keep going, good. Have a rest. Try again now on the left. Shoot up, 180 degrees, squat. Pivoting on the left foot. Pivot on the left foot. Good. Have a little rest. Have a 15 or 20 second rest now. Take a seat, shake your legs out. Have another stretch back and forth. So another leg exercise, wide feet, toes pointing out. These poses are called Skandasana, left and right. So a lower squat as you can, which I can't go very low there as you can see, but left and right, back and forth. To the left, to the right, and the left toes up. Over to the left, right toes up. Slow and controlled. Keep going back and forth. Almost done. Make your bottom go as close to the ground as you can. Good, done. Have a rest, shake your legs out. Take a seat. So go to the back of your mat, squat position. Now we're doing little bunny hops, pushing through the shoulders, push the ground away, hop or float, feet out to level with your hands. Then backwards, hands between heels, push back. Hands between heels if you can, hop back. Try again, hands out in front, float forward, feet between hands, feet beside hands. Push the ground away, float forward in a hop. Plant the hands, weight onto the shoulders, float back. Keep going, back and forth. And then back. Now start experimenting with long hops, right out in front and a long way back. Good. Long hop, big push. Hands right back. Push back. Have a rest. Do a little quad stretch, 1 foot back. Lean back as much as you can. If you haven't got much range in this position, you might not lean back very far. Just as much as you can. You can control the stretch by lifting your bottom up and down off the ground. Just have a little rest before we start the next thing. So this next pose is called crow pose, and it's the most challenging position of this class. So if you can't do the full crow pose, just try to get some weight bearing on the arms, even a little bit. So it's a position we're familiar with from the start of the class. Hands down, up on toes. Try to get your knees right into your armpits. Gently shift forward and try to balance on your hands. Now, even if you can only just get just up on your toes, that's fine. I think the tip is to get your knees into your armpits. So high hips, high heels, knees into armpits, shift forward gently. If you can lift your toes off the mat, that's good. If you can't, just try to as much as you can. So set down, have a rest. Have a practice back and forth. It's hard on the wrists and hard on the arms, this. So keep practicing back and forth. In the video, I'm going to try and hold for 20 or 30 seconds. A good tip is to try and wrap your elbows narrow rather than have your elbows shooting out. Knees into your armpits. Even if your toes are resting down, that's fine. Good, have a rest. Shake your wrists out. It's hard on the wrists. Shake your shoulders out. So the final bit of this session will be trying to link all these movements together. Okay, get ready. Go to plank, chaturanga, upward dog, lift up into downward dog, high hips, lift your belly button and hold, downward facing dog. Pounce position, hop, step or float to the top of the mat, malasana. Back to low boat pose, roll like a ball, and then roll forward up into a sideways low squat. Sideways float to the right, then back to the left. Face the back of the mat, then do the 180 float. Float, back to your squat, then do a squat, turn on the left foot, land, turn on the left foot, land. Then doing right leg squat, turn 180, land. In the Skandinasta position, left and right, just once. Then doing forward and back hops, which is as much float as you can, back and forth. Then see if you can do a brief crow pose, just as much as you can. Chaturanga position, upward facing dog, flip your feet over, have a rest. And we're done.